Hello, everyone. My name is Akai Fox, and this is another episode of Every Monday Matters. On Mondays, I like to challenge ourselves to think of something that will help to develop ourselves, show some self reflection, and ultimately start the week off right. This comes from our journal, Start Where You Are, which is a journal for self exploration. This week, it says, fill these tiger outlines with 3 of your biggest fears. Then color them in until you can't see the fear anymore. There is a quote here that says, fears are paper tigers. Now you can see from the illustration, I'm assuming we're supposed to maybe stretch out some of these fears or make really interesting letters. I clearly haven't done that. I also struggle with making permanent marks in a book. I think that comes from something that was done often for me, and then books were given to me in a very unhealthy way. I'll just say that. So for me, I cannot write in books. I will, however, retrace this and do what it asks here, which is to fill these 3 tigers, fill in these outlines with your 3 biggest fears and then cover them until you can't see them anymore. I think it's a really good practice to put into perspective the things you fear the most and then doing something physically to try and cover them so that you are taking some power, right? For me, the first fear that comes into mind is losing my husband, losing the person who is my world. I have realized that through my years, I have a lot of decent friends, close friends, but I don't know that I can say I have a best friend outside of my husband. And I mean, maybe my sister, but sister best friend doesn't seem, well, maybe it does, but it doesn't seem the same as saying, hey, I have a non-relative as my best friend. And for me, it's definitely my husband. My biggest fear is losing him. My second biggest fear, I would say, is probably being in a place where I cannot make ends meet, right? We've been down to one income several times, and it is scary to think of being in a situation where you lose everything. So maybe my biggest fear is loss. But I'm just so overjoyed with where I'm at in my life as far as I have my own home. We have a car. We have 2 beautiful fur lines. And I tried to say felines and fur. Anyway, you know what I meant. That I struggle with the concept that one bad day could mean this would be all gone. And I know these are materials, I do, but they also come with a peace that I didn't learn until I was much, much older. My last fear would likely be, again, I think it circles around loss. I feel like it would be my own loss. Where will things be if I'm not here? And I don't mean that selfishly. I mean, how will that impact the people that I know and that I love? And I think in some ways it makes me put up a little bit of a wall. So maybe that's why I only have my husband is truly my best friend who I share everything with, because I worry if I let things get too close that it will hurt people if I'm... Anyway, so obviously talking about fears is very hard. Identifying them is even harder. And then really thinking about them and talking about them out loud is the hardest. And I think this is healthy in a way for me to realize what I fear the most. And ultimately, it comes down to loss of losing what I love, what brings me peace, and what makes things, day to day go on, and the loss that will inevitably come when our own existence is gone. And I think in some ways, most of us fear our own mortality, fear our own death. And I know that at the end of the day, everybody dies, right? And for me, that kind of is a very catalyst, very, very harsh way of saying, everything comes to an end and to make some peace with it. But every time I try to make peace with it, even though I know that's the case, I end up doing kind of the extremity. Either let it go completely and try not to think about it and build walls, or it overwhelms me. So we're all working through things in life, and that's okay. But hopefully I can take this practice and I can cover those fears with a layer of peace of mind, comfort, and acceptance on my fears. So hopefully this was helpful for you and realizing maybe what your 3 biggest fears are. I challenge you all, if you're listening to this, maybe to at least take down the time and write them down or acknowledge them out loud. And if you're feeling especially courageous, share them. Whether you'd like to put them in the comments or you'd like to share them with someone you trust, share them with someone else so they are aware and you can work through that. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you do, please go ahead and leave it a like. And if you would like to see more of this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You have a good week.